sa ating lahat at welcome sa ating ugnayan kay Senator Win Gatchalian. Una po sa lahat, kami ay nagpapasalamat sa pagdalo ninyo sa ugnayang ito. Isa po itong espesyal na pagkakataon upang ating ipagbunyi ang mga batas para sa edukasyon na isinulong ni Senator Win sa inyong tulong at upang marinig din mula sa inyo ang ibang issues sa edukasyon na siya namang magiging focus ni Senator Win kung siya ay mapagbibigyan ng pagkakataong magsilbi muli sa susunod na 6 na taon. Nais po namin i-acknowledge ang mga dumalo sa ating ugnayan. From the Philippine Normal University, its President Dr. Bert J. Tuga, the Vice President for Academics Dr. Jenny Hoxon, the Dean of College of Teacher Development Dr. Ruth Alido, the Director of Graduate Research Office Dr. Arlene C. Marasigan, the Dean of College of Flexible Learning and EPNU Dr. Celia Ilanan, Dr. Alan Espinosa from the Educational Policy Research and Development Center, Dr. Wilmer Reyes from the College of Graduate Studies and Teacher Education Research, Dr. Leia Amor S. Cortez, the Executive Director and Provost of Philippine Normal University, South Luzon, Professor Nonita Marte, Specialist of Values Education Program, Dr. Gladys C. Nevera, Dr. Bonita Marie Cabiles, Dr. Ethel Villafranca, and Dr. Eliezer J. de los Reyes. From the Philippine National Research Center for Teacher Quality, we have the Director, Dr. Gina Ogonong, Deputy Director Maria Lourdes Pantoja, Senior Manager for Communications and Advocacy Mr. Arvin Yana, Senior Program Manager Dr. Levi Elepane, Senior Program Manager Dr. Ali Anudin, Senior Project Officer Maria Isela Lampos, Project Officer Mr. Mickey Marie Tuazon. From the University of the Philippines College of Education, we have Dr. Amelia C. Fajardo from the Curriculum Studies area. From the University of San Jose Recoletos, we have Dr. Hestoni Babia, the Dean of School of Education. From Xavier University, Ateneo de Cagayan, we have representatives from the College of Education, ascended by Dr. Edrelin C. Manla. We also have Professor Maridel Mugot. From the St. Paul University, Philippines, we have the Dean of School of Arts, Sciences, and Teacher Education, Dr. Fe Malyari. From Miriam College, we have Dr. Trixie Marie Season, the Dean of College of Education. There are also other members from the College of Education who are attending this event. From Mindanao State University, Iligan Institute of Technology, we have Dr. Amelia T. Buwan, the Dean of College of Education. And also, I would like to acknowledge the presence of some of ex-SECO members and faculty members who have attended this event. From the De La Salle University, Dasmariñas, we have Dr. Paterno Alcartado, the Dean of College of Education. Ngayon naman, upang mas makilala pa natin ang Senador ng Edukasyon, panoorin po natin ito.
Isa sa mga masisipag na senador na sinisiguro ang mga batas na makakapagpatibay sa dekalidad at abot-kamay na edukasyon para sa bawat Pilipino. Si Senator Win Gatchalian. Nakapagtapos si Win ng Finance and Operations Management sa Boston University. Dala ang mga aral na natutuhan, napaunlad niya ang mga kumpanyang pinaglingkuran, kabilang ang Air Philippines at Waterfront Philippines. Naging matagumpay man si Win sa pribadong sektor, tumugon din siya sa tawag ng serbisyo publiko. Nagsimula si Win bilang kinatawan ng unang distrito ng lungsod Valenzuela noong 2001 at naging punong lungsod noong 2004. Dahil sa mga programa ni Win, naging ehemplo pagdating sa edukasyon ang lungsod Valenzuela. Pagbalik ni Win sa Kongreso noong 2013, pinangunahan niyang ihain ang Free Higher Education Act, ang libreng matrikula sa state universities at colleges. Sumabak at nagpursiging makapasok si Win sa 2016 senatorial elections. Sa unang taon pa lamang ng kanyang termino bilang senador, naging ganap na batas ang Universal Access to Quality Tertiary Education Act. Bilang chairman ng Senate Committee on Basic Education, Arts, and Culture, patuloy ang pagreporma ni Win sa mga programang pang-edukasyon, pangalawang pagkakataon para sa mga hindi nakapagtapos ng pag-aaral, ang batas na Alternative Learning System o ALS. Dahil ang edukasyon ay para sa lahat, sapat na pagkalinga, dekalidad at angkop na edukasyon sa mga mag-aaral na may kapansanan. Para naman sa mga nag-aasam na maging guro, mataas na kalidad ng edukasyon at training simula sa kolehiyo hanggang sa makapagturo. Isinulong din ni Win ang muling pagkakaroon ng good manners and right conduct at values education sa mga paaralan. At ang pagtatatag ng National Academy of Sports na huhubog sa susunod na henerasyon ng mga atletang Pilipino. Patuloy namang isusulong ni Win ang kanyang mga panukala at advokasiyang pang-edukasyon, dekalidad ng mga pampublikong paaralan, dagdag na sahod at benepisyo para sa mga guro, at ang digital transformation ng sektor ng edukasyon. Para sa kanyang malawak na track record bilang lingkod bayan, napili siyang 69th Lee Kuan Yew Exchange Fellow noong 2019. Isa si Win sa 4 na Pilipinong nakatanggap ng natatanging pagkilalang ito mula sa Singapore. Bawat pangarap, kayang-kaya nating matupad. Sa pangunguna ni Senator Win Gatchalian.
Sa ngayon po, pakinggan po natin ang mensahe ni Senator Win Gatchalian.
Good morning to everyone. Magandang umaga po sa lahat. Thank you for joining us in this e-rally. Maraming salamat po at pinaunlakan niyo po yung aming imbitasyon. Thank you for joining us in today's e-rally. Ang aking paniniwala, ang pinakamainam na tao hingan ng tulong ay yung mga nakatrabaho mo, yung mga nakakita kung anong klaseng trabaho ang ginagawa natin. Kaya madalas ko pong inuuna yung mga taong nakatrabaho natin o mga taong nakasama natin sa mga hearings dahil you can attest on the quality of our work, you can attest on the sincerity of our objective, you can also attest to the vision that we have for the education system. And I will also take this opportunity to thank everyone, because of your invaluable participation when we were crafting all of these laws. Naging kabahagi kayo ng mga batas na pinapatupad na natin ngayon o yung mga batas na patupadin pa lang. Acted 8 laws of national significance. And let me just name one by one. Number 1 is the National Academy of Sports Act. Itong batas na ito ay ngayon pinapatupad na. Number 2 is the GMRC and Values Education Act. Number 3 is the amending the school calendar in response to the pandemic. And then number 4 is the Alternative Learning System Act. Number 5 is the CCF Life Academy Foundation. Number 6 is the Inclusive Education for Learners with Disabilities. And then number 7 is the Excellence in Teacher Education Act. And then number 8 is the EDCOM 2, which we finished the Bicameral Conference Committee report. Basically, we enacted 8 laws already, and these laws cannot be enacted without your invaluable contribution and support. Marami dito sa batas na ito ay pinapatupad na, in iba ay papatubadin pa lang, and that's the primary reason why we want to go back to the Senate. Itong mga batas na ito kailangan ng oversight, being a very active participant in the crafting of this law because of our chairmanship. One of my objectives is to see the implementation of these laws. Implementing the law is the bigger part of the problem. So we want to make sure that the laws are implemented properly. We want to make sure that the laws are well funded, and I want to make sure that we fight for the funding for these laws. It's important that someone champions the funding of the laws because a lot of them requires a significant amount of funding. We have issues with quality of our education system. And in fact, in many of the international examinations like PISA, TIMSS, we came in last. And this became a national shame for us. In fact, it's not only national, but international shame, because these are published internationally and globally. Imagine mo, we have 10 million Filipinos abroad, and when this came in last, nakikita ng mga ibang banyaga na last tayo. So I took this as a challenge, and I took this as a big opportunity to shake up the system and implement reforms. I called on many of you to help me in this quest of shaking up the system and implementing reforms. Two laws that are very, very important that we need to make sure that it's implemented properly. Number one is the Excellence in Teacher Education Act. This is probably one of the most important systemic and structural reforms that will be undertaken by our country. It's important that we protect and implement the law. When I say protect, alam niyo naman, some other laws might dilute this law. So we have to make sure that it's protected and implemented. And we have to make sure also it's funded. This law is very important that we roll out it very carefully and meticulously, because I truly believe that this law will radically reform teacher education in our country. This is one of the reasons why I want to come back and hopefully chair the Basic Education Committee once again, to make sure that we implement this law properly. The other one is the EDCOM 2, the Education Committee, the second Education Committee, which is very important also. We already approved the Bicameral Conference Committee report, ready for ratification na po to, and then they will transmit it to the President. The Education Commission is geared towards addressing our challenges in the quality of our education system. There's only one goal for Education Commission 2, which is to address the quality of our education. And this will be composed of congressmen, senators, and as well as the private sector and the academe. And we made sure that the private sector and academe is part of the decision-making process. It's important to get the academe and the private sector on board to be part of the solution. So these are the two laws that are very important in improving the quality of our education in our country. But the other laws, the other 6 laws that are mentioned, are equally important in reforming various sectors of education, like GMRC, inclusive education, alternative learning system, and the others. So these are very important sectoral laws, I call it, in education, because it addresses many of our problems in the country. I know that we have only addressed part of the problems of our education system through these laws. The other part will be crafting more laws and making sure that these are implemented. My goal is to have another 3 years in the Basic Education Committee, see to it that these laws are implemented, and the other laws that we need to implement will be crafted. Again, what we want is to raise the bar in our education system. We owe it to our children, we owe it to our families. Kahit na hindi popular ang quality of education, we owe it to them, because this is the future of our country. Isa lang naman ng sigaw ko, education. Because I want education to be the top of mind of our voters. Again, thank you very much to all of our education stakeholders. Alam niyo, hindi ko matatawaran yung contribution ho ninyo. At all of these laws, hindi magagawa to kung wala ho kayo, because I'm only the shepherd. You provide us with knowledge, experience, and with the technical assistance. We're just the shepherd, and we just provide the political muscle and the shepherding to make these laws happen. But behind this is your assistance and your contribution. And kung wala ho kayo, all of these laws, hindi ho natin magagawa. So thank you very much for your time, and thank you. Maraming salamat po for joining me today, and thank you very much for once again helping me in this past 3 years. Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat, Senator Win. Tamang-tama po yung mga batas nyo, especially yung Excellence in Teacher Education, because ang participants po natin ay mga educators from Centers of Excellence for Teacher Education. Bibigyan natin ng pagkakataon ang ating mga participants na magtanong sa ating butihing senador. Maaari pong mag-raise ng hand sa Zoom upang kayo ay matawag namin. Yes po, Dr. Marasigan.
Yes, magandang umaga po sa lahat. May tanong lang po ako. I've been working for rural education since 2017, and from Luzon to Mindanao, I heard some comments from the multi-grade teachers. Meron po ata kayong policy sa DepEd na meron po tayong tinatawag na hazard pay para po dun sa mga malalayo talaga na mga nasa kabundukan at mga tawid dagat. Meron naman din po silang hardship allowance. So dalawa po sana ang natatanggap ng mga nasa rural at nagtuturo sa mga remote area at mga multi-grades. Unfortunately, may mga schools or something na pinamimili lang sila. It's either kumuha kayo ng hazard pay or kumuha kayo ng hardship allowance. So, Senator, sana po ay matugunan po natin ang ganitong issue. At they are giving their best naman po para matulungan yung mga nasa malalayong lugar. So, yun lang po yung gusto ko pong malaman kung talaga po talagang may malinaw na policy tayo na dapat ay dalawa at hindi isa ang natatanggap ng nasa remote area ng mga teachers. Kasi po karamihan po doon talaga ay tawid dagat at saka tawid bundok. Okay, thank you po.
Ma'am, to be honest about it, this is a DepEd administrative policy. I have to check kung ano po yung kanilang logic and rationale to this. No? So wala akong information ngayon because it's administrative policy, but I'll check kung ano po itong administrative policy ho nila. And let me also ask DepEd kung ano po yung kanilang policy and rationale for this.
So maraming salamat po sa inyong tanong. We assure you that we will be taking note of your question. Ito naman po ang purpose ng ugnayang ito. Mapakinggan kayo ni Senator Win upang mas mapatibay pa ang kanyang education agenda para sa susunod na 6 na taon. Dr. Amelia Fardo, nagtaas po kayo ng hand.
Sorry, magandang umaga sa iyo, Senator Gatchalian. Naging bahagi ako ng isang proyekto sa evaluation ng Muslim education. It was a very life-changing. I realized a lot about the Muslims as our brothers. So, tutukan din natin yung madrasa education. And we had significant findings about the implementation of madrasa education. And if we are really true to our cause for unity, I think that's one of the areas where we can focus on later on. Suggestion lang po yun, sir. I think being involved in basic education through research, ang dami ko po nakita kasing parang question on the relevance because we only have one curriculum implemented all throughout the country. And if you consider the landscape, one community is very much different from another community. And one curriculum cannot address the immediate concern. And if we look at the dropout rate, which is 35, for example, 100 students entering elementary and only 65 proceed. Ang concern ko yung 35 who drop out. What do we do with them? Thank God there is the ALS already, no? Pero yun yung focus While we focus more on the formal ed, what do we do with the 35 students who eventually drop out? What are the opportunities for them? Yun lang po yung mga concern ko, yung how can our education be relevant to the specific needs of the community? Kasi if we have one curriculum for all, teachers are prescribed to implement this curriculum. Kasi minomonitor nga natin yung affinity, fidelity ng implementation with the intended curriculum. Well, thank you very much, sir. Maybe I can just write to you about all of these things.
Sige, ma'am.
Good morning po.
Thank you. On the issue of madrasa, based on our research, the madrasa it's deeper than just providing schooling for our Muslim children. Madrasa by itself is a form of Muslim education system. That's what we found out. And although the word madrasa is loosely used here in the Philippines, in fact, the common understanding of madrasa is the a live program that DepEd is giving. But if you ask Muslim scholars and Muslim academicians, because we also consulted UP, madrasa is a system. Here in our country, we only have one education system, which is the DepEd system. I said that because when we were crafting the law, we have to go deeper into what madrasa means. We don't want to legislate something that will create more divisions by having a Muslim education system and a non-Muslim education system. No, that's not our intention. Our intention was to supplement the learning of our Muslim children, especially outside of BARM, because we all admit that our Muslim brothers and sisters, our Muslim culture is an inherent part of our history. When Muslim children go out of the barn, they tend to forget their history and their culture. So the Alive program was created to do that. We need to strengthen the Alive program here in our country. We need to strengthen and make sure it's funded and structured. Our Muslim children outside of BARM will continue to appreciate their traditions and their history. You're right, we will be filing a bill that will strengthen the Alive program. We're still debating whether to use madrasa in the Philippine context, but definitely we'll be filing a bill to strengthen the Alive program as part of our inclusive education approach, including indigenous peoples. My advocacy is to convene the Joint Oversight Committee on K-12. Hindi pa ho siya nako-convene Dr. Gina, ever since. We need to review K-12. The intention is to come up with employable senior high school students, come up with high school students who can join in the tertiary education system or go to college and pass the entrance exam. But that's not what's happening right now.
Thank you, Senator Win. The next to ask a question is Dr. Reyes from PNU.
Hello po, good morning po everyone, and good morning Senator Win Gatchalian. Gusto ko lang po na patunayan specifically yung sinabi ni Senator Win kanina. So actually Senator Win, bago pa ang forum na ito or even before po, kahit hindi po ninyo sabihin, ako like personally or yung team namin sa Values Ed ay talaga naman po na ini-endorso kayo para muling alam namin yung kalidad po nung inyong paggawa. Dahil sabi nyo nga ay unang-una na yung inyong mga nakatrabaho. So we can attest to that. Kasi and then we learned so much in the development of the law, yung RA 11476, yung GMRC and Values Education Act po. At nakita po namin kung gaano yung kalidad ng inyong trabaho at saka yung pagtutok doon sa paggawa ng batas. So in fact, we learned so much in the process of developing the law. So together with you and your office po. And so with that, kami po ay sumusuporta. So in fact, gumawa kami ng isang video even before yung pinagdaanan ng batas na yan sa GMRC, and yun na po talaga yung ginagamit namin, at wala pa itong pag-uumpisa ng eleksyon ay ipinopromote na po namin talaga iyon sa aming bawat pagle-lecture sa mga teachers po natin, and ang kadalasan dito ay mga national kumbaga training naman namin and forum or webinar para ma-disseminate din doon sa mga kaguruan, lalo na sa basic education po. Yun pong inyong kumbaga na champion pagdating po dito sa GMRC and Values Education Act. So, and highlighted po doon yung inyong mga sinabi. Nag-curate po kami nung lahat ng mga yun at gumawa po kami as a team nung video na yon. So therefore, you are being promoted na doon, Senator. At kapag nagle-lecture kami, ay sinasabi namin na, of course, Senator Win Gatchalian yung nag-champion nito and champion siya sa education. So I think, so tantamount to saying now na ibalik niyo po siya sa Senado. Ang pangalawang punto po is, nandun na po yung law, and nagpapasalamat po kami dyan. Pero gusto ko po kasing i-reinforce na sana yung pagbabalik po ninyo doon sa Senado. Kasi 2 points po minsan nandiyan yung law, nagawa na, pero ang talagang nakakaproblema po when it comes to implementation. So kung napirmahan yung batas na yun noong 2020 pa, pero 2022 na po ngayon, till now po ay waiting tayo doon sa implementation. So, bakit hindi na-i-implement at ano ang nakakapagpa-delay doon sa implementation? So is it because of the funding or the budget that should be appropriated po for that law? Kaya I think 2 important things. Sana po ay masundan po natin sa inyong pagbabalik sa Senado yung funding po na dapat ay appropriated doon sa mga laws na yan sa education, plus po yung tutok doon sa implementing agency na talaga pong ma-implement nila. Maaayos natin na yung mga problems ng mga teachers doon sa field, mga disqualifications of teachers and so on. So kailangan natin pagbutihin at paghusayin ito kasi alam natin na ito yung makakatulong sa edukasyon, sa pangkalahatan, no, sa kabuuan para sa ating bansa. So naniniwala po tayo na ang malaking kontribusyon ng edukasyon siyempre bilang isang malaking sektor, no, nung lipunan, no, para po umunlad yung ating bansa. At saka naniniwala po kami sa mga pagcha-champion nyo dun sa mga nagagawa po nating batas. And siyempre po dahil kami po ay nasa teacher education, so suportado din namin yung Teacher Education Excellence Act po, no? So siguro yan yung isang pakahihintayin din namin na talagang mag-materialize, no? So at sana ay bilang isang National Center for Teacher Education, and then dumami pa rin yung mga ibang teacher education na nagsusulong kasi kami po yung supplier din, hindi po ba, ng mga teachers na ito sa basic ed. So maaari po kaya na magawa iyon at sana po ay maisama po sa inyong mga gagawin kapag ka po kayo ay nabalik po doon sa Senado na totoo pong mag-materialize itong lahat po ng mga batas na ito na inyo pong nabuo at hindi lang po ito maiiwan na parang batas na walang pondo at wala pong implementasyon. So maraming salamat po Senator Win Gatchalian at mabuhay po kayo sa inyong mga advokasya.
Thank you, Dr. Reyes. Thank you for that honest feedback. Talaga kung yan ang nagiging problema ng bansa natin and legislation in particular, na marami tayong batas. In fact, ang dami nating batas. Pero hindi na i-implement ng mabuti o hindi na implement at all. No? At that's why in the beginning of my speech earlier, number one on my advocacy is oversight. Meaning yung mga batas na nagawa natin, particularly yung 8 national laws, dapat masigurado natin yung implementation and funding if necessary. In fact, in GMRC, hindi kailangan ng maraming funding yan. It's not as funding heavy as other laws. No? But importante yung implementation. Now, as to why, bakit hindi implement, there's so many reasons. Ano naman ang DepEd is such a big organization. If you ask them, I'm sure they'll tell you it's the pandemic. No, that's a popular reason right now. But para sa akin, importante hindi parating pandemic yung dahilan natin. No? Importante na tutulak natin yung batas because all of these laws na ginawa natin, the reason why we chose them, because it's very important to our well-being and our education system. Especially GMRC and Values Ed. The Senate, even Congress agreed that this is essential to our citizenry. It's an essential foundational concept for all Filipinos. In short, that's part of my agenda to make sure that the 8 laws, importante lang ma-implement tong mga batas na ito. No? And talagang trabaho yan ng Senado na pukpukin ng mga agencies to implement it. But thank you for the feedback. Kayo talaga nakakaalam to on the ground, and rest assured, pag makabalik tayo, kahit na hindi ko makuha yung Basic Education Committee, I will launch an oversight to make sure that those laws that I mentioned earlier are being implemented properly. Dr. Reyes, thank you for attending our hearings in TWG. Gusto ko lang i-highlight na typically ang TWG, Senate staff lang nag-a-attend ho yan. But ako, ang style ko ho, I really attend the TWG. In fact, the TWG for me is a learning process as well. No? Because alam ng PNU yan, talagang line by line natin dinidiscuss, word by word, even the terminologies, we discuss and debate about it. Because in crafting the law, I want to understand deeply why we are doing this and what's the logic, and why we chose this type of provisions to include in the law. That's why in the TWG, I really sit in all of those 8 laws na ginawa natin para talagang lumalim yung understanding ko doon sa batas na binabalangkas natin. But thank you, Dr. Reyes, and to your team who participated from start to end in the crafting of the GMRC in Values Ed Law.
One last comment lang, Senator. Actually, that's where we appreciated you most po nung nagulat kami na even in the TWG it's none other than Senator Win Gatchalian, no, who was leading actually so all throughout the process of enacting this law hanggang sa maipasa po siya. So I think hindi po yan talaga ginagawa nung mga iba, and dyan po namin kayo hinangaan. Kaya unang-una, kaya sinabi namin na committed, maayos magtrabaho, Senator Win Gatchalian. So yan po yung pagsampalataya po namin sa inyo, no? So bilang nakatrabaho po ninyo, at kaya we're praying and then hoping also na maibabalik po kayo sa Senado. Salamat po, Senator Win.
Thank you po. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Win and Dr. Reyes. Sir, we're down to our last 3 questions. Let me call on Professor Maridel Mugot from Xavier University, Ateneo de Cagayan.
Hello, good morning sa lahat. Good morning, Senator Win Gatchalian. I just want to express how happy I am with the newly signed law that you have with regards to the inclusive education. Kasi I experienced teaching talaga in the special education class before, and there are so many challenges that I have experienced. And to name a few, one of this is that most of our students, especially I have observed in the public schools, they are not diagnosed because of the lack of doctors, dev peds in our area. So we only have, I think at that time, we only had 2 doctors who could diagnose learners with disabilities. And if a child will magpa-schedule sila ng appointment with a doctor, usually it will take them 3 to 6 months to wait for their schedule because ang dami, fully booked talaga yung mga doctors namin dito. Aside from that, those students who are also diagnosed, parang hindi consistent yung mga therapies that are provided, that are recommended for them. So for example, yung doctor, they recommended the child to have at least 3 sessions per week with a speech therapist to improve their speech and language skills. However, because talaga the lack of budget sa mga schools natin and even sa budget ng mga parents natin, they are unable to really follow the recommendations of the doctor. I do hope that this Inclusive Education Act would also look into the multidisciplinary teams that we have, that are ideally in school. So for example, in a public school, nandun ang doctor natin, we have speech therapists, we have occupational therapists or physical therapists, so that talaga we can really help the child sa bang needed nila. So yun lang yung gusto kong i-express po. Salamat.
Thank you, ma'am. Actually, nung pinipirmahan to ni Presidente last Monday, he made an expression, sabi niya, ang ganda nitong batas. Actually, he mentioned it twice. One when he was signing, one when he was speaking. There are 2 things that I want to highlight. First, yung IEP, Individualized Education Plan, which is now a legal document under the law. So we all know it starts from there, yung IEP ng bata. And then that IEP becomes the guiding document to educate the child. Ngayon, it's part of the law. And then number 2, is also the specialist. The staffing and the specialist will not happen overnight. Alam natin yan because of budgetary and also supply issues. But in the law, we also address the supply issues because now government is mandated to hire this type of specialist. It's a signal to students to take this type of courses so that they can enter DepEd or they can enter the workforce. At the same time, we also tasked CHED to make sure that this type of courses are being offered in the pre-service level. So that's how we will address the specialist in the inclusive education law. Alam natin na kulang rin eh. So we need to make sure that there's demand and we need to make sure that there's supply. So the law addresses that.
Thank you, Senator Win. Thank you, Professor Mugot. The next question would be from Dean Hestoni Babia of University of San Jose Recoletos. Dean?
Good morning, Senator. First and foremost, I'd like to congratulate you. In terms of support, you don't need to worry about that. We are in one with you in the direction for improving the quality of education in the country. Actually, we indirectly work together because I also the Visayas representative for the Teacher Education Council. And we work closely and actively for the Excellence in Teacher Education Act, no? And I'm quite curious on ano na po yung nangyayari doon sa ating sa process na po na iyon. So I think that's the first question. Second is I'd like to congratulate you for really pushing for the inclusive education and those issues on IEP IEP, even special education teacher setup in the Philippines is not really that well defined compared to the setup in the other countries. Like even our books in special education are patterned in the books in the United States, no, and all other countries, and we don't really have a definite practice that is Philippine based or localized and contextualized to how we implement that in the Philippine setting, except for those a few special education schools in the country. Third is I'm quite curious also, Senator, no, we represent Philippines to a lot of conventions and conferences in Asia Pacific and in the Asian countries on education for sustainable development. And the intention of this program is to help the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals or the SDGs. No, I'm quite curious about your direction, and at the same time, since you're working in the Senate, how do other lawmakers, both in the Senate and the Congress, look into this direction in terms of developing policies related to SDGs and ESD? So we work on the development of this framework for Asia and the Pacific for teacher education, but unfortunately, this has not been raised to the level of the political level, no? Which will really be something that everyone should be aware of. So I think those are my questions. And again, congratulations, and my support is really with you and the rest of your team.
Thank you, Dr. Babia. Insofar as the Excellence in Teacher Education Act, it's ready to be transmitted to the President. No? So tapos na dito sa Senate and Congress. The process there is once we transmit it to the President will review it, his legal team will review it, and then if there are no items there that are controversial, he will sign it. And I'm sure he will invite, again, stakeholders, the authors to have this ceremonial signing. It will become a law. It's just we just have to follow the process. In terms of SDGs, we have a committee in the Senate now. No, it's a committee on SDGs chaired by Senator Pia Cayetano. Admittedly, in basic education is not as pronounced, and the reason for that is we're still addressing a lot of the basic problems. For example, quality, teacher education. So we're swamped with addressing all of these very fundamental, very basic problems. But I do agree with you that SDGs is a set of goals, and we have to somehow embed that in our education system. So there's a sense of direction. We can actually embed SDG as part of the goals to be discussed and formulated by EDCOM2. But we do have a body in the Senate that talks about it.
Thank you, Senator Win. Thank you, Dean. The next to ask a question is Dr. Trixie Season from the College of Education of Miriam College.
Hello, good morning, Senator Win Gatchalian. And first of all, I'd like to thank you for everything that you have done for education, to uplift the education system in the Philippines. You have our support. I'd like to ask a question. Earlier, Dean Babia asked the question about the excellence in education. I'd like to know, are there initiatives already done to be able to attract the best and the brightest to go into teacher education? Belonging in the private education, I see that there is already a decrease in the number of students taking up education. And I hope that there will be some initiatives done to be able to really attract our students to go into education. That's my first question. And my second question has something to do with higher education. In basic education, before a teacher will be able to teach, you have to pass a licensure exam. But in higher education, teachers, you just need teachers who are really experts in the field, and they're able to teach the content right away. But it seems that there is a lack in terms of pedagogy or andragogy, for that matter.
Mm.
I asked this question because in other countries, before you're able to teach in higher education, you have to get a particular certification. And this is really very important because, we're dealing with individuals who will lead who will be able to lead the country in the future. And they have to really be trained by teachers who are not only experts in terms of content, but be able to really impart knowledge effectively. So those are my two questions. And again, congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Season. Ma'am, on the Excellence in Teacher Education Bill, it was actually a very good discussion and debate when we were talking about this bill, because there were proposals to reimpose a national qualifying exam to determine whether you are qualified, to take the education course. There was a debate, in fact, whether to put that in the bill, but we decided not to. But instead, we made it a function of the Teacher Education Council to look at it if necessary. I say that because there was a debate whether we should just get the best of the best, and train them in the pre-service level, so that when they enter in service, they're the best teachers possible. In the bill also, we included, and this is derived from the House version, a scholarship program. So there is a proactive approach in getting the best of the best. In the bill, we will offer scholarship programs and other incentives to attract the best students to go in the teaching profession. There's a proactive approach there, and that's why part of my agenda is to make sure that the scholarship program will be funded. No? Importante ho kasing funding. Part of my agenda is to look at the implementation of the law and make sure that it's well funded. When we launch the scholarship program to attract the best of the best, we will have the necessary funding to finance the scholarship program. And actually, hindi lang scholarship, pati other incentives to attract. So those are the two things to attract the best graduates possible to enter the teaching profession. Po sa higher ed, I have to review that concept of having some form of certification or qualifier to teach in the higher education sector. I have not looked into that in greater detail. So we'll get back to you po, Ma'am Trixie. But it's a good point and something that I will bear in mind as I go along po.
Yeah, thank you so much. The reason why I asked that question is currently we're being sponsored by the Commission Higher Education to attend a particular course that would develop higher education faculty. So it's a certification program that we take in the University of Liverpool. Our class agree that this is something that's a very good initiative, because we feel that not everyone, unless you have an education background, you will not be able to really know all these things. So thank you very much, Senator, and we assure you that we're going to support you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ma'am Trixie. Thank you po. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dean. Last question na po from Miss Eleanor Baiten. Sige po, ma'am.
Yan, magandang umaga po, Senator Gatchalian, at sa lahat po ng taong narito sa Zoom room. Eleanor Baiten po from the Philippine Normal University. So ang unang tanong ko po, kasama po ba siya sa plataforma ninyo to address the digital divide? And if yes, ito po ba, will this go beyond just distributing gadgets? Kasi po, nakita natin may mga move na po, no? Salamat din po sa ating pamahalaan, no? Na may mga move to distribute gadgets. Pero will this go beyond distribution of gadgets lang? So maraming salamat po, Senator. Mabuhay po kayo.
Napakagandang tanong yan, Ma'am Eleanor. That's a fantastic question, and parati ko ang ginagamit ng example, in pandemic, natuto tayo lahat mag-online shopping. Dapat in education, matuto rin tayo on online learning. And you're right, no? In digital divide is a scary thought, no? Because pag mayaman ka, meron kang internet access at gadget. Kung mahirap ka, wala ka na, bahala ka na. And even in PISA showed that digital divide is creating low learner outcomes. No, in one of the notes that PISA came out, students who have computers at home tend to perform better than students who do not have computers at home, no? And internet access as well. We're actually set to file a digital transformation bill, no, in education. And the concept here is to put the ICT, DepEd, CHED all in one table to discuss digital transformation. So, but we need to have a roadmap. Tama kayo, it has to go beyond tablets and computers. No? In other countries, yung online learning is becoming a norm for college. Even masteral degree, yung mga brand name schools sa US, they are now offering full online course for masters. It has to go beyond computers and internet. You need to use, let's say, sophisticated learning management systems. You need to use this type of systems, both teacher side and learner side. We need to level up our digital learning, and we need to eliminate the digital divide. The bill that we're filing is to draft that roadmap and to follow and fund that roadmap. I have a 10-point agenda for education. It's part of that. It's one of the digitalization of education is one of the 10 points.
Thank you, sir. Good to hear na kasama po pala siya. Salamat
Yeah.
po.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Ma'am Eleanor. At this point, let us call on the representatives of several organizations for their messages. The first one to speak is Dr. Jenny Hoxon, the Vice President for Academics of the Philippine Normal University. Dr. Hoxon.
Good morning. Good morning, Senator. Good morning, friends. Senator, we've been working together for quite a while now. We thank you for foremost no sa paniniwala na ang ating mga guro ang ating panlaban sa quality education. In particular, Senator, my experience working with you and your staff in the Excellence in Teacher Education Bill is just tremendous. No, we were also on our toes, Senator, whenever we meet with you, because we know that you will analyze data. We know that you will read everything that PNU sends as a position paper. We know that you will read. We know that you will ask questions. So anything that we write on document, we need to ensure that it's backed up by data, that we have the materials to support whatever we would like to say, whatever we said during sessions. We'd also like to thank you, Senator, for listening to us, listening to the stakeholders. It has always been a pain no, in the education sector na parang lahat ng ginagawang batas para sa education, parang nakalimutan naman kaming tanungin. Ang dami-dami namin sa sector. Kami ang may pinakamalaking sector sa lipunan. And yet parang hindi kami iniisa-isa. But working with you, we realized baka mali lang, no? Baka hindi tamang panahon lang ang hinihintay namin. And that's with you, Senator, leading the work on basic education, working with your colleagues in the Senate and in Congress, ensuring that the best of the laws, no, the quality laws will really be passed para papunta tayo sa mas malinis na education in the Philippines. Would also like to thank you, Senator, again for making sure that the teachers are at the heart of every conversation because kami sa PNU and I'm sure all of our colleagues na nandito sa Zoom room ngayon ay naniniwala na ang guro ang lalaban para sa quality ng education sa Pilipinas. So we support your many advocacy, Senator. We support your further directions, emphasis on further, Senator, directions for education. We support your dream for quality education for the Philippines. Ang pamayanan po ng pamantasang normal ng Pilipinas ay naniniwala na if we have leaders like you, we will move highways at ang ating quality education ay malapit-lapit na nating mata mo. Hard work, but we're together on this matter, Senator. Thank you for your hard work, Senator. We wish you all the best. We're with you every step of the way, sometimes quiet, but we're with you, Senator. You know that. Salamat po. Magandang umaga, Senator.
Thank you, Dr. Jeannie, and thank you really for the assistance, especially the technical side, no. And it was really an honor to work with Dr. Gina, Dr. Bert, and you, Dr. Jeannie, and all the PNU team because we need reforms. We need to shake up the system, and we cannot do business as usual, because business as usual will not bring us anywhere. And the excellence in teacher education. So thank you very much,
Senator.
Thank you, Dr. Hoxon. Thank you, Senator Win. The next one to give a message for Senator Win is Dr. Gina Gonong, the Director of the Philippine National Research Center for Teacher Quality. Dr. Gina?
Thank you very much, Attorney Jean. Senator Win, it's not very often that we find somebody like Senator Win. On a personal and professional note, I'm glad we found each other. Senator Win listens. He listens well. He listens like a critical friend. This means he focuses on ideas, understands them, and when he doesn't understand fully, asks really good questions. He is a sharp thinker. He knows how to get right to the core of the issue. He is a problem solver. He knows what can be done to address problems. Senator Win works hard. When he has a burning question or an idea, time or day does not matter to him. He asks questions, he expresses his views. Senator Win really works hard. Senator Win has all the good things we could want. He knows how to get what he wants. His stubbornness is the good kind. He understands what is needed for reform, and whatever it takes, no matter how difficult, he will do his best and deliver. Senator Win, we will always be grateful for the work you've done in education, particularly in the area of teacher quality. And we have been blessed to have you as our champion of teacher quality and a champion of teachers in the legislative branch. Looking back, Senator Win, we spent productive times with you. Researchers can present evidence, academics can come up with great ideas, but not many people find time to talk about these evidence and ideas and endeavor to understand and seek clarification. You did, Senator Win, and for that, we're very thankful. I remember you telling us that any reform encounters resistance. Looking back, with you as our champion, that resistance did not matter to us. You know from research evidence and in your heart that teachers deserve better pre-service preparation and in-service support so they can flourish and help improve our students' learning outcomes. Education matters, teachers matter. Senator Win, please continue on this education and teacher quality reform journey with us. It will be a long journey, and we need you in this journey. All our best wishes, Senator Win, and mabuhay ka.
Thank you, Dr. Gina. Thank you for the kind words. I thank PNU for bringing this to the fore. It was a long journey because started with the predecessor of Secretary Nograles, si Gabsec Evasco, no? And then kay Gabsec Nograles. I don't think all of us will understand the gravity of teacher education without you bringing it to the fore. And you held us all the way to the end. It's PNU who will be pushing for the implementation of this law. So we need to make sure that it's implemented properly, make sure that it's not diluted along the way. Let's give this law a chance because it's our only hope to reform teacher education as of this point. Of course, I am also lobbying for more benefits and salaries. That's a more popular advocacy among the public, but deeper is the teacher education system. And this is the law that will address that. No? I hope our teachers will see the beauty of this law because it will redound to their benefit. Thank you, Dr. Gina.
Thank you, Senator Win.
Thank you, Dr. Gina. And of course, to the PNU team headed by Dr. Bert and the team. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Win. Thank you, Dr. Gina. So maraming salamat po sa pagdalo ninyo sa ugnayang ito. Malaki po ang hamon na kinakaharap ng sektor ng edukasyon dahil sa unprecedented impact ng pandemya sa ating mga paaralan, guro at kawani ng eskwelahan at higit sa lahat sa ating mga mag-aaral. Sa tulong ninyo, makakaasa po kayong isusulong ni Senator Win ang education agenda para sa stronger recovery ng sektor ng edukasyon. Muli, maraming salamat po at mapagpalang araw sa ating lahat.
Thank you everyone. Maraming salamat for your help and support. Maraming salamat.